So welcome. Please be advised this presentation is intended for the stakeholders of the Toronto District School Board, and the content in this presentation doesn't necessarily reflect the policies, procedures, and guidelines of other Ontario school boards. We know that some individuals are joining us from other boards. Welcome. But as advised, this information may or may not pertain to your particular school board. And if any of you would like a copy of this presentation, please send a written request to businessdevelopment@tdsb.on.ca. So here's a quick overview of our agenda this evening. We'll begin with an overview of who we are at Business Development and our different business lines. Next, we're going to define the term grant. What is a grant? Why do we apply for them? We'll delve a little bit into fundraising at TDSB and important reminders about spending fundraising dollars. We'll move into grant applications, understanding business development's role with the review and application process, agreements, things like that. Next, we'll review the types of grants available that schools and/or departments may apply for. We'll review best practices for writing a successful grant application. Next, we'll be taking a look at resources for school councils available through our What's This site. And at the end of the session, we will hold a question period where we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. So before we begin, as we do at all meetings and gatherings at the Toronto District School Board, we will ground ourselves with the reading of our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe. Excuse me, I'm going to repeat that. We acknowledge that we are hosted on the lands of the Mississaugas of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat. We also acknowledge the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. So business development's role at the Toronto District School Board is to bring in resources that support student success, inspire staff, and increase TDSB's community involvement. By providing resources and advisory support to TDSB schools, staff, students, school councils, parents, guardians, and caregivers, and the community, we're able to realize this mission and vision. Now, we're a small team that makes a big impact, led by our business development manager, Suzanne Sue. My role as business development coordinator is to manage donations, fundraising, grants, scholarships, and contests. Rosemary Bruni is a fellow business development coordinator who manages our distribution of materials requests, employee discount program, and sponsorship. And new to the team and joining us this evening is Diane Irving, who is our interim administrative assistant. So as I mentioned, our 6 business lines include donations, both in-kind and monetary donations, fundraising, which includes both school fundraising support and managing our fundraising and funfair vendors program, our advertising and distribution of materials to TDSB schools and offices. We manage the employee discount program, and we vet and promote grants, scholarships, awards, and contests. And we also support the board with sponsorships, including drafting sponsorship agreements and advising on board policies, procedures, and guidelines. So for each business line, business development's role is really to ensure compliance. Everything we do is to mitigate risk and adhere to the board's and ministry's policies, procedures, and guidelines. So let's get to the subject that brought us all here together today, grants. What is a grant? By definition, grants are contributions or gifts, cash or in kind, made by a government, corporation, foundation, or other organization for a specific purpose. Grants are usually conditional upon certain qualifications and require some level of compliance and reporting, such as financial or written reports or audits. For TDSB, grants are considered a form of fundraising. Fundraising is a local school activity that is a collaborative effort among parents, school councils, caregivers, guardians, principals, students, school staff, your trustee, the community, everyone together to raise funds to enhance the school program and support school initiatives. Fundraising activities may include grants, sponsorships, fun fair activities, and donations. It's important to note that all fundraising activities must be approved by the principal. The principal working with the school, whether it's the school council, parents, and community, decides how fundraising proceeds are spent. As required by regulations 612/00 and ministry guidelines, parents, guardians, caregivers are to be informed about how fundraising proceeds are spent and are used by school councils. It's important to remain transparent. Please note that funds must be used within a 2-year period from the date of receipt, unless designated for a specific project. For instance, if a project spans over the course of a number of years. And a reminder that these funds must be used for the original fundraising purpose only. While expenditures are at the discretion of the principal and school council, ministry fundraising guidelines and the TDSB's fundraising policy do govern what funds proceeds may or may not be spent on. Funds are not to be used to provide resources necessary for the delivery of curriculum or for capital improvements, which are funded through renewal grants from the Ministry of Education. Fundraising is intended to enhance programs and support school initiatives or to support other external causes. So here are some examples of acceptable uses of fundraising dollars. Student subsidies, for instance, a grade 8 graduation trip, purchasing materials, equipment, and non-curriculum books, schoolyard or sport facility improvements. In this case, you must work with your facility services family team leader and request a viability review before you proceed with fundraising for a facility improvement. Extracurricular activities and nutrition programs. Those are all acceptable uses of fundraising dollars. Some examples of non-acceptable uses include core curriculum materials, capital projects, goods or services from board employees that give rise to potential conflict of interest, political activities, administrative expenses, and they cannot pay a board staff for services. So just a reminder or a quick note that we'll be sharing a link to our participant survey in the chat, and we invite you to complete the survey following the presentation. Your feedback is very important to us. So did you know the Toronto District School Board promotes up to $1.8 million in available funding through grants, scholarships, awards, and contests, which schools, school councils, and departments may utilize to support their fundraising goals. Business development's role is to support and guide schools, school councils, and departments through the grant application process. So our role is to support and guide school councils through the process, review grant applications prior to submission to ensure the legal compliance, ensure there's no conflict of interest, and ensure that any recognition requirements as part of the grant are organized and are consistent with the TDSB policies and procedures. Prior to submission of a grant application, business development will research the funding organization to ensure that they align with the board's mission and values, and that they do not violate any policies or procedures. And we ensure that TDSB schools and departments are eligible to apply. Once schools are announced as winners, they inform business development, and at that time, we guide schools and departments through the next steps of the application process, We review and provide feedback on any contracts or agreements. We coordinate with legal for the review and modification, if needed, of any agreements. We also work with our communications and public affairs department regarding any recognition requirements. Let's say the funder wants a grant event, a celebration event, then we go through the process with them at that time. And we coordinate the signing authority for the agreement. And at TDSB, grant agreements are signed by the associate director, unless otherwise advised by our legal department. So here are some of the types of grants that BD has reviewed. They include the Best Buy Technology Grant. This grant opened on September 6th. It just closed on October 13th. It's an annual grant, so you can look ahead to applying for that for next year. The Indigo Love of Reading Foundation, their Literacy Fund grant. That one closed early this year in February 2022. But the new application window is opening soon, so keep that one on your radar. The Music Counts Band-Aid Program grant is open. It's due coming soon. It's in a week or so, November 24th. So if you are interested in applying for that grant, we encourage you to review all the criteria. All these grants have been vetted and all schools are eligible to apply for these. As well, the TD Friends of the Environment grant, it is open and due on January 15th, 2023. These are just some of the examples of the grants that we vetted. So as we continue to explore the grants process, I wanted to take an opportunity to share my personal story with you, to how we came here and sort of where I am coming from at this. For many years, just prior to joining business development, I worked for a nonprofit organization, and I was a fundraising, partnerships, and special events manager. And the foundation that I was working for had a long-standing event, a 5-kilometer walk, which sort of helped generate revenue for the foundation so that we could continue the important work that we did. And when I first joined the foundation, the walk was in its 11th year, and it welcomed about 700 participants. On screen, you can see how much revenue the walk generated through pledge forms, an event raffle, general donations, permit fees, a raffle license, swag bags, and a bunch of prizes that were purchased for the raffle. Year after year, immediately following the event, I would hold a debrief meeting with my committee. And each year, the committee voiced that the planning and execution of the event was time consuming. It was labor intensive. All the things from applying for a lottery license to acquiring the raffle prizes, stuffing swag bags for participants, 700 participants, obtaining participant t-shirt sizes, promoting the event to the media, counting toonies and loonies from pledge forms. It was a lot of work. It definitely generated great revenue. Our net profits were $8,000, but I continue to reflect on those comments. I wanted them to know that I value their feedback. And so I proposed that we put the walk on a 1-year hiatus until we could come up with a new fundraising event idea. And so you can imagine that this came as a shock to some people, wondering how could we turn away $8,000? This walk was in its 11th year, 11 years worth of work. So I had to find a way to convince them that we needed to really put our energy where it made the most sense. So I went back to the drawing board. I thought, how can I bring in a significant amount of money in a short period of time with not as much work? And so I found a solution: grants. The foundation had not applied for many grants over the years, and so I began my search. I researched a number of Canadian grants that were available to registered charitable organizations. The Toronto District School Board is a registered charity, so bear that in mind. And I came across several grants that the organization was perfect for, and I applied and I was successful. And I brought in $12,000 just like that. Was it easy? No. There was a lot of preparation that went into my application, but I read through the criteria and I made a really, really strong case to the funder. Mainly, I made it difficult for them to say no. So we review grants as low-hanging fruit. They are available. Business development is promoting them. All you need to do is apply for them. So let's move on to how your school can share a success story like mine. How can you write a successful grant application? So before you apply, please check the business development website on the employee portal to see if the grant, or even if it's a contest or competition that you want to apply for, is suitable or not suitable to apply for. What does suitable mean? Well, that means that BD has reviewed the grant prior to school submitting them for legal compliance. Again, we make sure there's no conflict of interest and it's consistent with the TDSB's mission and vision. And as well, with respect to recognition requirements, we make sure that we can meet those requirements. I see a comment in the chat. Is crowdfunding or Kickstarter allowed? So crowdfunding is a source of, or it's a way to fundraise. It's not specific to grants. We can get back to you on that. I mean, there are legalities with respect to the platform that individuals use for crowdfunding or through Kickstarter. Mainly, it's the privacy, whether or not the third party platform, what are they doing with the information that we're giving them? So, Louis, thank you for your question, and I'm happy to circle back with an update on that. All right, so here's a quick overview of the best practices for writing a successful grant application that I'm just going to flesh out in a bit more detail here. What are the funders' needs and expectations? That's the first item we're going to be taking a look at. Next, we'll look at what are your unique qualities or qualifications to winning the grant. Conduct research, complete the application, review, and submission. So as I said, let's flesh through this a little bit further. So what are the funders' needs and expectations? Read the application and understand the expectation and the deadline. What are the funders' expectations? Does the school or school council have the expertise to deliver the initiative in time and within the budget? Investigate the types of projects that the grant has funded in previous years. Do the successful projects seem similar to your proposed project? What aspects are similar? Familiarize yourself with the grant funder. This will help you tailor your application to specific opportunities. And what are the focus areas of the grant? Which areas align most with your needs? Grant writing is just like other types of fundraising. It's about relationships. So if it's at all possible, contact the funder, contact the organization, discuss your ideas for the grant before you apply. And prior to writing and submitting your application, maybe their vision sort of aligns with yours, and then you can tailor your grant to meet those needs. So what are your unique qualities or qualifications to winning the grant? Understand the grant scoring matrix. Conduct a self-assessment and determine the chances of winning the grant before you even pursue it. Has the grant been vetted by business development? That's another one. There have been cases in the past where schools have applied for grants that they were not eligible for. And it was a lot of work for no return because they were unable to accept it. They were not eligible. Is this grant for a facility enhancement? And if so, have we requested a viability review from our facilities team? Have a clear and concise objective. Have clear milestones and deliverables. It's always a good idea to reference a case study or an example from your community as evidence. Number 3, conduct research. Review the SWOT analysis, your strength, your weakness, opportunities, threats. Determine your demographics. Outline which communities will be impacted. Your school alone, or will the local community around your school benefit from this? Because the greater the number of beneficiaries, the higher the chance your grant will be successful. What is the size of the audience? What is the growth potential? How long will you need support for? Will this project be sustained for 1 year or multiple years? Identify the cause or need. That's what you're going to be doing when it comes to research. And doing your research will make it easier to complete the application. In the application, we encourage you to give an authentic story of why you want to win the grant. What is the impact and importance of these activities on your community and population served? Give a compelling reason. Do not use a template that another school has used. This is about your community. Clearly communicate the nature of the initiative, sort of the who, what, how many, and when. What are the measurables? Some of the common questions asked in applications are, what are the resources that are required? For instance, will it require staff time, specific materials, hardware, software? When it comes to budget development, what is the total cost of your project? Have you figured that out? What are the program priorities or goals, and how will they be reflected in the application? Identify the type of support you need. Is it project funding? Are you looking for in-kind donations of equipment? And how much funding do you need? Supporting documentation is often asked. So do you have those documents? Do you have videos? Do you have images of the space or projects or initiative? Can they be included? Can you upload them? Another question is, what is the application word limit? Have we considered that? Can you summarize all the major activities associated with your project in one page? Number 5, review. Give enough time to review and proofread prior to submission. Read the funder's guidelines thoroughly. Do your own spell check. Do not rely on a computer. Ask a colleague, fellow parent council member, or staff to review your application to ensure that all the details are clear, concise, and reflective of your goals. And number 6, submission. Before you submit your application, make sure that the application is error-free, is submitted before the deadline, and remember to include the final draft of any budget documents, pictures, or video links if applicable. And after you submit your application, remember to retain a copy for yourself and provide another copy to the school principal. Congratulations, you submitted a successful grant application. So what's next? So once your school is announced as a winner, please contact business development. We'll guide you through the next steps of the approval process. You can email us at businessdevelopment@tdsb.on.ca or call 416-395-9694. There's another question from Lewis. In your experience, do joint submissions, 2 or more schools from the same board have a better chance of success? Thank you for the question. I would say it really depends on the grants. As I said earlier, the more individuals you can outline as the beneficiaries, the greater the chances of your application being successful. I know in the past there was 2 school boards actually came together, the Toronto Catholic School Board and Toronto District. I think it was on Perth Avenue, and they applied for a grant from the MLSE Foundation for a field revitalization. It was a school building that was shared by both school boards. And so the outdoor space was utilized by both communities. And so they made a really compelling ask, and they actually received the grant. So much success and to the delight of the community. So definitely, if you can, buddy up with a local either community member or another school, and should the application permit you to do so, we definitely encourage you to do that. Okay. So say you submitted a grant application, but you didn't win. Don't be discouraged. You can always learn and improve for next time. If you're not successful, we recommend contacting the funders, sort of receive their feedback for next time. You know, how can you do things differently? We really encourage you to do that. Another question we got two questions coming in. Are there school board-led grant applications? So that brings me to my next slide, or What's This website, which houses all of the grants that are suitable to apply for and not suitable to apply for by Toronto District School Board stakeholders, parents, guardians, school councils. So I'll go through that in a second. Switching to Tanyar's question, do you post successful grant recipient schools on the Twitter account? I've seen Let's Use Music accounts as an example. They tend to post highlights of the recipients from the current year or previous years. Business development doesn't actually do that. It's really a case-by-case scenario. Maybe some funders just want to keep it private. So for those reasons, we don't really promote the winners, but we do have an annual report every year where we do list the number of schools that have received a grant, you know, as part of our success as a department and as a school board. But yes, definitely peruse Twitter, review the funders' platforms, see what types of grants that they promoted. One example being the Jays Care Foundation's grant, their Field of Dreams grant. It just closed recently, but I was just on their Twitter account and I just was looking through some of their posts, and I noticed that they did highlight some of the grant recipients from previous years. So definitely great question, Tanyar, and thank you for asking it. It was a great suggestion, something to be mindful of if you want to take a look. All right, so Business Development's new and improved database called What's This assists our school staff, schools, and school council searching for a particular grant, contest, or scholarship opportunity. The site is located on the employee portal, replacing the former BD SharePoint site. And as I mentioned, Business Development reviews all contests, grants, and scholarship opportunities provided by external organizations or various governments before being distributed to TDSB schools. And this is in line with our P006 advertising and distribution of materials policy. I know that we have some questions. I'm just going to hold off until the end. I'm just mindful of the time. So feel free to continue adding your questions to the chat. There will be a question period towards the end of the presentation where we'll open up the floor and you can ask any questions that you have. So our What's This site contains information, vetted content for contests, grants, and scholarships. They list the grant, scholarships, and contests that are suitable to apply for and not suitable to apply for. If there is a grant or contest opportunity and you're searching for it and it's not on this list, please reach out to us. We are happy to review the opportunity. But as I said earlier, we encourage you to review this full list of grants available. Your fundraising initiative may meet the criteria of the grant, and your application can significantly reduce the amount of time and effort that you're putting into fundraising. So here's some instructions on how to access the site. You can log on to tdsbweb.tdsb.on.ca. And from the homepage, you'll just go to quick links. There's a drop-down menu. You can select distribution of materials and grants, and this will take you to the main page of the Business Development What's This site. So once you get to that landing page, you'll scroll down or turn to the top left-hand side of the screen for a list of contests, grants, and scholarships. And then on the contest page, this is what you're going to be looking at. If you go to the bottom of the screen, it'll show you a complete list of the contests, grants, and scholarships that are marked as suitable to apply for or not suitable to apply for. This is accessible by school council chairs and co-chairs with the TDSB login. Those of you who don't have a staff or school council login and can't access the employee portal, please reach out to Business Development. The website provides the opportunity to export all the data into an Excel spreadsheet. that we can then share with you via email. So the information in the spreadsheet will include the grant name, the funding amount, the criteria, and the deadline. It's all there at a glance.